Okay, as we can see here, Abu Ishaq's rather interesting depiction of Cyprus, Jazira Kubrus, island of Cyprus there, from 1193, and we'll see the relevance of that as the slides progress. Right, so let's get started, if it will allow me to. There we go. So many may be surprised that Cyprus has a shared Mediterranean culture. It's a Levantine culture. Interestingly, Cyprus was known as Nujum al-Sham, the star of the Levant, or the star of the Fertile Crescent. Right? Why would it be the star of the Levant if it didn't hold any importance? It's also known in the history books as Jaziratul Hadra, the Green Island, and that has come all the way to us today, where the Turks will say Yeşilada, Green Island, right? Probably because of global warming, it's not so green anymore, but certainly it was in the past. But as we can see here, many of you who perhaps are Levantine or are familiar with Sham culture would know about, Turkish coffee. Maybe that's a hotly debated thing now with the name. Is it Suri, Lubnan, whatever it may be, but generally that's how the name started. Backgammon, tavla. We've got the handicrafts, things like sela, sesta. We've got the traditional costumes, fezes, tarbush, collarless shirts. We have shalvar, or a variant of that, which we call dizlik in the local dialect, and sirwal in Arabic is called. Our food is actually very similar. If you go to a Lebanese restaurant and then you go to perhaps a Cypriot restaurant, you're going to see a lot of similarities in the food that's out there. And I've actually dedicated a slide specifically for food. We have nargile. Yeah, nargile. Everyone's getting happy. Wow, Levantines here, I can see. Very good. So that's a similar culture that we have. Music, traditionally, the oud, which is kind of known as the father of the guitar, was very popular in Cypriot culture. I know the Greeks still maintain that culture, not so much with the Turkish Cypriots, unfortunately, but still very popular in Sham region. Darbuka, which we call töplek in the Cypriot dialect, is also still very commonly used in Cyprus as well. And the makamat, the makams you have, not just in music, but also with the ezan as well. So in Cyprus, you had different ezans traditionally. So the Fajr, the morning prayer, would have a different makam. The öğle namaz, the dhuhr prayer would have a different makam. And it would kind of encourage one, depending on the time of the day, to, stop what you're doing, go off to prayer. So the makamats are very similar as well. Things like, does anyone know about the makamats? No? Okay, so you have Kurdi, you have Taksim, you have various other ones anyways. But it's very interesting. You should all look into it. We have many loan words that have kind of gone back and forth from each other as well. And literature, divan poetry has been, or is rather, very popular, particularly with the Arabs to this day. But traditionally in Ottoman times, we have divan poets from Cyprus who have been very influential throughout the Ottoman lands. We'll get to know about them, hopefully, as the slide progresses. This map here is an Ottoman map, by the way. So it says Beirut Vilayeti, the province of Beirut, obviously Lebanon. And then we have, there it says Kıbrıs Adası, again the island of Cyprus, and Bahri Sefid. So Bahar from Arabic means ocean, and Sefid is from Farsi. So it's a mix of the two there, and you'll get to know, as you know more about Ottoman Turkish, that there's a heavy influence of Farsi, that being Persian, and Arabic influence. Also, it's worth noting, our friend here said that the island is Levantine. When we look at introductions about Cyprus, or any book regarding Cyprus, how do they start it off? The third largest island in the Mediterranean, right? Why do we want to be third place for, get the bronze award, where we can say that we're the largest island in the Middle East, get the gold award, right? And I think that says a lot about the mindset of our people. Perhaps it's a hang-up from colonialism, where we want to be associated with the West, right? Maybe it's the fact that the Greek side, the southern side, is a member of the European Union, and therefore it perhaps legitimizes in some people's views that we are European. But then again, in the Eurovision, you have the Israeli entity that's in the Eurovision. Yeah. And you have Australia in the Eurovision as well. So Australia certainly is not a European country. So by being affiliated to these kind of organizations geographically, it doesn't change anything, that the island is situated well within the Mediterranean, and that being the East. And that's fine. We have a beautiful culture. Okay. It's worth noting, before we progress into the Arab influence, to go way back to the ancient history of Cyprus. And this ancient history has a massive effect on the haplogroup. So many of you may have gone and done an ancestry test, and our friend here has found out she's actually part Turkish, right? And oftentimes there'll be people that say that we have the same genetics or very similar genetics with the people from the other side. But then again, we also have, as you can see here, what's called the J2 haplogroup, which is very prevalent in the Levant region. So Anatolia, Sham, that being Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, all of these areas have J2. And if we look at, interestingly here, Moria, that being modern day Greece, the peninsula part, Athens, Sparta, where those areas were traditionally, it belongs to a different haplogroup altogether. Okay? And the reason for that is that the current Cypriots, the Greek Cypriots, or however you want to label them, the indigenous people of the island, have been Hellenized. Racially, they're not like Greek people, they're not from Greece. That doesn't mean that they're not Greek. They've been Hellenized, right? So in terms of their customs and their language, they are Greek. And if they feel themselves to be Greek, then that's fine. But there is no racial continuity from Greece. Not so much. A little bit here and there. Like we can see here, there's the ancient kingdoms of Cyprus, where we can see here. And they were actually mixed according to different ethnic groups. So you had some which were Hellenes from Greece mainland and the islands. But yet others which were what they call Etio-Cypriot. Etio meaning proto or original. So you had people there that originally came from the Levant, and then later on from Anatolia, who formed the original Cypriot people. Their language today doesn't belong to any family of languages. Okay, so the original Cypriots, Etio-Cypriots, had their own kingdoms. And interestingly, some of these kingdoms were Phoenician. Okay, everyone know what the Phoenician is? Anybody? Yeah? So the ancestors of the modern Lebanese people. Okay, so we can see that there is already at this ancient stage a link with Semitic people. Hence, the Semitic bloodline, the Semitic culture runs deep through the veins of the Cypriots. Okay, we can see here Kition, for example, here in modern-day Larnaca was a Phoenician kingdom. If we look to the south of the island, Amathus was Etio-Cypriot. And when we think of the ancient Cypriots, we may conjure up images of, ancient Greece and the culture that these are all from Cyprus. Here we can see ancient Egyptian influence, and ancient Egyptian being one of the powerhouses of the time was able to export this influence to the neighboring countries as well. Remember, Egypt is just here. So its influence was felt in Cyprus such that they were imitating Egyptian styles. And here we have Sargon II, who was the king of Assyria. This was found in the 1830s, again in the Larnaca region. So we have the Assyrians were also Semitic people. And later on, the Akkadian language also is part of the Semitic family of language. And we can see here the Assyrian Empire, which includes Cyprus as well. And we can see why it was called Nujum al-Sham. This is the crescent, and this is the star. Okay. For our relevance, or for the Turkish people of Cyprus, their connection really begins with the Muslim kind of states that are involved in Cyprus. And when we talk about the Muslim history, this shouldn't be taken as necessarily, welcome. This shouldn't be taken as a lesson in theology. This is a lesson in history, right? So being part of the Muslim civilization, of that influence which actually started, is a 1400-year history, right? Meaning that Cyprus has a history as long as the history of Islam itself. Okay, so many of the lands that many of you may have come from, particularly those of you who are Muslim, Cyprus was in the hands of the Muslims before many of those other lands. And it starts all the way from Al-Khilafah al-Rashida, the pious caliphs, right? So Abu Bakr, Omar, Uthman, Ali, radiallahu anh. But in fact, the connection goes even before that, to the time of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Because we have narrations in the Hadith literature recorded in Bukhari and Muslim, and it's graded as Sahih in all of those narrations, where the Prophet had multiple dreams in his relative's house, Haram bint Milhan, who is lovingly known as Hala Sultan to the Turkish Cypriots, in which he predicted the conquest of Cyprus. So from the time of Uthman bin Affan, when the province of Syria was under the governorship of Muawiyah, he was persistently asking for, we need to take Cyprus, we need to take Cyprus. Strategically, geopolitically, it has a value for us. And the Arabs at the time were not a seafaring people, so they were very reluctant. Omar, in fact, had said they declined when Muawiyah requested for the navy to build a navy and actually go out to Cyprus. But Uthman eventually agreed as long as it was voluntary. So everybody that joined in that campaign had volunteered, and we'll see who actually volunteered again as the slides progress. After the rightfully guided caliphs, we have Al-Dawla al-Umayyah, the Umayyads, we have the Abbasids as well. And what we see is here, the Mamluks here, Ottomans, and Northern Cyprus. So what we see is over time, the Arab influence starts to decline throughout these periods. So from a fully fledged Arab empire, the Umayyads were very pro-Arab in the way that they were spreading, and even with the people that were converting to Islam, they very much had a very kind of a sense of Arabism as well, which was predominant in their statehood as well. But in the Abbasid time, we start to see a more multicultural influence from the Persians and later on from the Turks as well. When the Turks were starting to convert to Islam, some of them were taken as slaves as well, and we see that a branch of the army within the Abbasid Empire is Turkish. So we can see that there, where there was some sort of ownership or claim to Cyprus, and I'll go into more detail in a moment, there was some sort of a Turkish component there as well. With the Mamluks were a state based in Egypt, and they also spread towards Syria as well, that Sham, Levantine area as well. And although the Egyptian people are Arabs, the people who were ruling were Turks, but not the Oghuz Turks. So they were from a different tribe of Turks known as Kipchak. So they were from the Caucasus and the kind of Ukrainian kind of area. They were taken as slaves, hence the name Mamluk, which means slave in Arabic. And they were taken in, and they ruled that area. And at the time, what they called themselves, they didn't call themselves slaves, Mamluk. They referred to themselves as Ad-Dawla it-Turkiya, the Turkish state. So the Turkish state actually had control over Cyprus at some point as well, during the time of Sultan Barsbay in 1426. In the Ottoman era, we see more of a Turkish influence, but still there is Arab flow coming in. And then with the formation of the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus, and that's the post-colonial era. That's when the identities have left from being Cypriot Muslims to turning into Cypriot Turks. And so that idea of the nationalistic or ethnic identities have been solidified in that time period. From this era, we see very little, if none at all, Arab influence continue adding to that culture, although previous Arab cultures which had influenced them unknowingly are still continuing to this day. Okay, here we have a map of the Abbasid era. You can see the borders during the Abbasid era. This is during the time of the Caliph Al-Ma'mun. And for those of you who are not sure where Cyprus is, Jazira Kubrus here. And to put things into context regarding the Turks and their association with Cyprus, we see the Turks are all the way in the orange part there. It's Al-Atrak al-Ughuziyya. Ughuziyya, Oghuz. So that tribe of the Turks, which are associated with the current day Turks in Turkey, in the Balkans, the Turkmens of Syria, Iraq, and the Turks in Cyprus, all stem their cultural or linguistic heritage from the Oghuz Turks, which were all the way here in Central Asia at that time. So before they even came to the West, we see that the Muslims at the time were ruling Cyprus under what was called the condominium. It was a 300-year condominium. Condominium means a shared ownership of Cyprus. Now, how that exactly looked like, we're not quite sure. What we do know, however, is that the Arab presence or the Arab influence was mainly in the southern areas of Cyprus. So predominantly in Paphos area and going all the way up to the Kyrenia range. Yeah, all the way up to the Kyrenia range. And we know that there were settlers in Cyprus from the Arabs. So from the soldiers, they built barracks and cities in Paphos and also in Famagusta as well. which is more towards the Levant area. And there were settlers sent by Muawiyah from Baalbek, which is in Lebanon. So we see settlers, tens of thousands of which were settled in Cyprus. We see here regarding the status of Cyprus, because there's a lot of controversy regarding what the control was exactly. Was it just a political control that they had? Did they have any influence on the ground? Was it actually a part of the caliphate? We have Imam Ahmed bin Hanbal, the founder of the Hanbalite tradition, who said, Kubrus laysa min bilad al-Rum. That Cyprus is not from the lands of the Romans. Okay, this is an important statement here. And we have Abu Mansur al-Azhari, who's a 10th century scholar. He said, وَفِي ثُغُورَ الشَّامِ مَوْضِئٌ يُقَالُ لَهُ Kubrus. Essentially what Abu Mansur is saying here is that the province of Cyprus is within the province of Sham. So the Sham or the Syrian district includes Cyprus as well. Okay, these are primary sources. Yeah. And this lasted up until the Emperor Phocas, the Byzantine or Eastern Roman Emperor, Phocas in 965. So what's interesting here, we have statements, primary sources, which show that the Arabs, the Muslims, were living side by side with the Romans. Christians, Muslims, and in fact one source from an Anglo-Saxon traveler who was on his way to the Holy Land, stopped over in Cyprus, and he went to a church, and he saw Muslims praying in that church alongside Christians who were doing their worshipping. He was so horrified, he quickly left. But when Phocas came, the Romans, there's no sign of any Muslims at that time. So that Cypriot coexistence, Muslim Cypriot and Christian Cypriots living side by side, was somewhat alive during that 300-year time, but was completely ended. We don't find any remnants of Muslims continuing to live there, or continuation of those people, or any of the mosques, or any of the institutions, because we know that there, from one source, from the Ottoman times, we have Ebu Suud Efendi, who said that there was Cemavi, Medaris, ve Mesajid. There were mosques, there were grand mosques, Jami, and there were also Medaris, schools, on the island during that time. This is not an extensive list. This is just a sample of the companions who had visited Cyprus. Some of them who actually were martyred. For example, Abu Talha was martyred in the sea on his route to Cyprus. These are big companions. These are companions who, according to the Quran, are raised in rank. And when I'm saying this, you don't have to be Muslim to appreciate this. 1/6 of the world is Muslim, so that holds a value, a human value, a human tradition, that the Muslim culture, the Muslim history, values Cyprus to that extent, where people of this stature were in Cyprus and were martyred in Cyprus. The most famous of which was Haram bint Milhan, from the dream that the Prophet had, as recorded in Bukhari and Muslim. And she is known as Hala Sultan, as a loving statement by the Turks. And this is her, what they call tekke in Turkish, I think Zawiya in Arabic, where there's a mosque in a separate building where she's actually buried, and people to this day continue to go and visit her tomb there as well. And that's in Larnaca. If anybody goes to Cyprus and lands at Larnaca airport, you'll be greeted by Haram. Okay. Muawiyah radiallahu anh, he was also in Cyprus as well, and he's known as the uncle of the believers. Mu'minin. Okay, high status. He was one of the people to record the Quran. When the message was coming to the Prophet, he was one of the ones to record it. Okay, so people of high stature, Ubadah bin as-Samit, Abu Dar al-Ghifari, Abu Darda, major companions, all which were present in Cyprus. There was also, beyond the religious kind of reasoning to go to Cyprus, other than the fact that Haram had her prediction by the Prophet, so it had to be fulfilled. And mind you, she was in her 80s when she went here, volunteered to go there, and she was Shahida. There is also narrations regarding the virtues of those that go and campaign by sea, naval voyages. But beyond that, the geopolitical foresight of Muawiyah, realizing that the lands of Islam had spread to Egypt, the Levant, and we were trying to get into Anatolia with the aim and the vision to go to Constantinople. And the way to do that and to secure their lands was by having a presence in Cyprus. We have physical evidence of that time as well. So this here is a photo which I took last summer. So I took a visit to Cyprus. I went to Paphos, and not too far from the castle, there is an old ruin of what was the barracks of the Muslims. And there is currently still Arabic inscription. You can see here, Allah, faintly written here, from that time. It could have been a companion who inscribed that there, right? We have amphoras. So these amphoras were things which were held where they would keep water, or obviously non-Muslims would keep their alcoholic beverages in there as well. And we have here Muhammad bin Kaina, written from that time. So primary sources. We also have seals and coins. Here we have on the top there, you can see Kubrus with the old spelling. So the old spelling, the traditional spelling would be with Qaf, Ba, Ra, Sin. With the modern spelling, the Sin has been replaced with Sad. Okay? But both are saying Kubrus. So we can see physical evidence from seals, coins, tombstones. We have inscriptions, as we can see here as one example, and we have primary records, as I showed earlier. And such. We have Abbasid records, financial records, all detailing how much was given to the Baytul Mal, the treasury, as well. Now, these Arabs, having a long history with Cyprus, naturally had their own names or variants of names which were originally present, which unfortunately, when we look at Arabic maps of Cyprus in modern day, all they're doing is copycatting the Greek. Nicosia, Famagusta, or the modern English names. Limassol, right? They had their own names. They had a 1400-year history with that island, right? So Cyprus is known as Kubrus, and this, although stems from a non-Arabic origin, some think that it may have stems from the word copper, Kypros. That's a theory that's out there, but certainly it's a non-Arabic origin. But what's interesting is the Turkish word Kubrus stems from the Kubrus, or Kubrus.
Tree. I don't know how you call it in Turkish.
Yeah, it could be. There is. I mean, there's also. Yeah, it may well be. There's also a Jewish theory as well, which says that it may be from. So there's a number of theories out there, but I think the most common one is that because the island was prevalent with copper and copper mines, and hence Gibros, copper. Yeah, some association there. Nevertheless, Gibros came to the Arabic language as Kubrus, and from Kubrus it became Kubrus in Turkish, and that's the Ottoman spelling there. So wherever you see the red Arabic script, it's actually Ottoman Turkish, and I'll read it for the benefit of those who are unable to read it. So Kubrus, Lefkosia, Nicosia, Lefkosia in Greek, was known as Al-Afkosia. Al-Afkosia, which is obviously derived from. You like that, don't you? Okay, and what's interesting about this Al-Afkosia, we have a report from Al-Hamawi, an Abbasid scholar, again a primary source, who says Al-Afkosia is the name of a city in the island of Cyprus. It is Arabized from the Greek Afgadyun. It means the best place. And where did he get this information from? Al-Hamawi says, an Arab man from the people of Cyprus reported this to me. So we know about Arab Cypriots who were present at the time, and he reported, this is what we call it, Al-Afkosia. We have, interestingly, Marousa, which is in English called Famagusta, in Greek is called Amokostos. Okay, so Amokostos, Marousa sounds totally different. What's interesting about this name, and it's called Mausa, we have the rain is silent in Turkish, in modern Turkish rather. We call it Mausa, and the spelling is very similar, just the sin is there instead of the sad. And Marousa is one who dives in Arabic. Laos. Okay, if you look, he will tell you that Marousa, maybe I'm mispronouncing, but Marousa is to dive, and it's a seaport. So they had their own original names as well. And the Turks, that means, learnt these names from the Arabs. So there was a linguistic continuation in the names that were there as well. Limassol, or Lemesos in Greek, is known by the Turks, native Turks rather, as Leimosun. Leimosun derives from the Arabic name for it, Limsun. Limsun. Baf was known as either Baf or Bafus, clearly derives from Paphos, Bafo. Akrotiri, Arotir, in Turkish, had a completely original name, Ras al-Abbas, the head or center of Abbas. Larnaca was known as Al-Mallaha, which means a place where there's like salt mines. Al-Mallaha, and although it's called Tuzla in the Turkish, Tuzla also denotes somewhere where there is salt, where there are salt mines. The meaning is similar, and Al-Mallaha was actually used in Ottoman sources alongside Tuzla. We have Kantara, the castle of Kantara, which means bridge in Arabic. Girne, Karinya is known as Shirina. We have Abuhur or Abuhor in Turkish, which is the old name of one of the villages. Karpaz was Karpas, Karpasia in Greek. There's a village in the southern side, Mansura. Anyone heard of this place before? In any of the Arab lands? Do you want to share? Okay, so there's a well-known city in Egypt called Mansura. And the name is still like that in the Turkish and also in the Greek as well, Mansura. Yeah, exactly the same. Have I left anything out? Al-Mallaha, Shirina, Kantara. In Lefkoşa, in Nicosia, we have areas with Arabic names as well. So we have Tahtegale, which derives from Taht el-Qal'a, under the castle. Okay. Now it's been changed to Tahta, which is wooden castle, Tahtegale. So we can see the continuation there with the names as well. We have Komi Kebir as well. We have a street in Nicosia called Zahra Sokak. And the interesting thing about this, although Zehra is a common name in Turkish, the pronunciation is Arabized. Zahra as opposed to Zehra. And that name has been in the road signs and everything all have Zahra. That's by the border in the Arab Ahmed area. Arab Ahmed, by the way, wasn't an Arab. So we need to be careful about when we look at the records. And it's made me have some difficulty as well when researching, because in Turkish, Arab can mean someone who's black as well or dark. So when I did my military service in Cyprus, because they don't know who's who, I was one of the Arabs. I was one of the blacks or one of the dark people. Not as a race. This isn't a racial slur, by the way. So someone with the glasses goes luklu. So it's just how it is, the culture in the East. They just say it as it is. So there's no PC, political correctness at all in the Middle East there. So it's difficult to know who is. So this Arab Ahmed Pasha, who's the area is named after, he was actually black in skin. He wasn't an Arab per se. In our relevance of Cyprus, which not many people know, is that in theology, in the study of theology, particularly in the area of Christian-Muslim polemic, Cyprus held a very important place, because we have an anonymous Christian letter from prior to 1316, Risala min Ahl Jazira Kubrus, the letter from the people of the island of Cyprus, which was sent to the Muslims. The letter was in Arabic, and the letter actually knew in-depth knowledge about Islam. He conceded on areas that wouldn't conflict with his Christianity, and in other areas he would actually debate the superiority or the truthfulness of Christianity. So we know that there was an Arab who was in Cyprus and who was a scholar of Islam. They knew about Islam they researched Islam. They knew about it maybe more than the layman would know. And such was the arguments used, or such was the importance of this Risale, that the prominent scholars of that time, who still hold prominence to this day, wrote a letter back regarding how Islam is the truth and how his points were wrong. And one of these was Shams ad-Din as-Sufi ad-Dimashqi, who died in 1327. His Jawab Risala Ahl Jazira Kubrus, his response letter to the people of the island of Cyprus. And also Taqiyuddin Ahmed ibn Taymiyyah, who is very popular, who was raised in popularity in the late 20th century to this very day, particularly with the rise of the Salafi movement, for example. They are very keen on Ibn Taymiyyah as a scholar. They call him Shaykh al-Islam. He actually responded as well with his jawab, his correct answer, al-Jawab as-Sahih. And he also sent another letter, al-Risala tul-Qubrusiyya. And here this is a very interesting letter, because not only is he arguing the case for Islam, but the main purpose of this letter in particular was for the release of Muslim captives. There were Muslim captives who were taken from the Muslim lands or taken from pilgrims or merchants who were in the sea, and they were taken as slaves to Cyprus. And Ibn Taymiyyah here was actually trying to release those Muslim prisoners. And the famous statement of Ibn Taymiyyah, anyone who's familiar with Ibn Taymiyyah will know, he says, if they kill me, it will be martyrdom for me. If they expel me, it will be migration for me. If they expel me to Cyprus, I will call its people to Allah so that they answer me. If they imprison me, it will be a place of worship for me. And this is in his biography, Al-Jami' as-Sira, Ibn Taymiyyah. Okay? There were a significant number of Muslim slaves in Cyprus, and a significant portion of those slaves had actually been baptized. So when the Muslims would start to be powerful, like in the case of Egypt and the Mamluks, they would say, give us our slaves back. I said, okay, but not the baptized ones. So what happened to those baptized ones? That bloodline. You know, I have many Arab friends in Cyprus, and they say to me, I'm shocked when I come to Cyprus. You guys are saying you're Turks, but you look like Arabs. You look like me, right? They're shocked because their bloodline is continuous. It's a J2 haplogroup area, right? So those slaves were incorporated into that Christian populace within the Greek Cypriots predominantly. So now for some controversy from some of the Cypriots. So Arab culinary influence. So we have many foods which are the same or very similar, as mentioned earlier. Turkish coffee, they have Turkish coffee in Syria. We have fırın makarnası, makarna do furni, makarna do furni. But these ones I've put here specifically because these are the ones that are derived from the Arab lands. We think of them as Cypriot, and even the European patent for hellim, halloumi, has been given to the EU, such that if you want to sell halloumi in the shops in the UK, you have to have the patent. It has to be from Republic of Cyprus because it's their patent. They're the ones who own that product. So let's have an academic delve into who these foods belong to. And guys, I don't have a horse in this race. Actually, I'm Cypriot, so I should be arguing the case for the opposite. But truth be known, we have been enriched by the Arabs, and I'm very pleased with this admixture. So, park that for a moment. Park that. You hacked into my computer? I think so. Okay. So hellim or halloumi. The Arabic word for that is halloum or halum. Ha. And the name itself originates from Coptic, pre-Arabic. Okay, in Coptic, halloum means cheese in a general sense. But by the time the Arabs have been Arabized, halloum is specific to halloumi, hellim. How do we know this? Everyone should know of Al-Maqdisi, the famous geographer, who died in 991, so primary source. He said, Jabnahumul halum, referring to the Egyptians. Egypt is their cheese. Egypt is their cheese. Rather, halum is their cheese, referring to the Egyptians. The statement was about Egyptians, a long paragraph regarding Egyptian products. And then when it came to halum, he said that it's their cheese. Okay, if that doesn't convince you even further, that was from 991. He died then. A Mamluk historian, Ibn Iyas, who died in 1523, he has a history of Egypt, and he lists hellim or halloum as an exclusive Egyptian produce that is exported to the Levant. So we know that we have halloum in Syria, in Lebanon, and these areas as well. It was originally from Egypt, spread to the Levant, and eventually made its way to Cyprus. And in fact, the word halloumi in Greek is halloum, and it has the ending which is specific to the Greek rulings of the Greek language, the E at the end. And hellim, of course, you can tell it was originally derived from that word as well. Another one is molahia, which is more popular with the Turks. You love molahia? Yeah, with the lemon? Ball. Okay, molahia is another food that we see. Yeah, it's our Cypriot food. Good Muslim make yo. Yeah. Molahia also derives from, anyone guess? Egypt also. It's a national dish of Egypt, and they have multiple varieties. You can even have molahia soup. Yeah, and by the way, guys, that h is more of a Greek h, molahia, and molahia was known in Cyprus in Ottoman times as a Muslim dish. Very rarely would the Greeks have it. If they did have it, they were living side by side by the Turks, and they learnt it from the Turks. Ibn Iyas, again, our friend, he records it as an Egyptian vegetable. Anyone had renga? Yeah, you know renga? Renga is this fish here. It's smoked herring. Any Egyptians here? Masri? Yeah, yeah. You have renga? Yeah? Okay, so as you can see, for those who can read Arabic, it's got a jim here, but the Arabic pronunciation even, so it should actually be pronounced renja. But the jim becomes a G, letter G in Egyptian Ammiya dialect. So it's known as renga, and it's coming to the staple diet of the Cypriots as well. And how do we know that it's it's famous dish amongst mainly with the Turks. I don't know if it's predominant with the Greeks as well. I know that they have it as well. Is it a popular dish amongst the Greeks? Renga. Yeah, of course. Thank you. So again, we're having that cultural enrichment from our neighbors in Egypt. Another one is kolakas. Kolakasi in Greek. You love it. So the English apparently is called taro root. So you just imagine a potato which is really soft and slimy. I'm not really making it sound that appealing, but it's worth trying. Kolakasi in Greek. In an Ottoman era Turkish dictionary, Lisani Turki, the Turkish language, it records the word that it says that the word kolkas is an Arabic loanword. And our friend Ibn Iyas records it as an Egyptian vegetable. You're getting fed up with Ibn Iyas. And another one is kibbe or kubbe. Okay, this one here. And it's called kubbes in Greek, directly related to the Arabic name. And bulgur köftesi in the Turkish dialect of Cyprus, because in Turkey it's called içli köfte. So it's very different in how it's described. Okay, let's go into the people of Cyprus. Let's go to the actual Arabs of Cyprus themselves. So we actually have, to this day, Arab Maronites of Cyprus, and they follow the Maronite sect, which is closely affiliated somewhat to Catholicism, but it would be wrong to call them Catholic. Because what we have to understand, in the Muslim lands, various sects of Christianity were allowed to thrive and live on, unlike in Europe, where they were being ostracized and they were being oppressed, and many of them had to move to Americas at later dates. We have many variants of Orthodox or Oriental Christianity still thriving in those lands to this day, and we have the Maronites, who have origins from Lebanon, came to Cyprus from towards the late 7th century. One of the theories is that they came from a village called Kur, and there's still that village to this day in Lebanon, in the northern part, where most of the Christians. So in the north, you mainly find Maronites and also Orthodox Christians in the north of Lebanon. And the main village in the northern side of the island is called Kurmajid. Kurmajid. Yeah, Kurmajid. Their dialect has been registered as severely endangered, and it only has 9,800 roughly speakers to this day. Traditionally, it used the Arabic script, but currently they use either the Greek script or Latin script to write their words. And 38% of their words derive from Greek. So they have been highly influenced by their Greek neighbors. However, when they use Arabic words, they keep Arabic morphology. And when they use or employ Greek words, they employ their Greek morphology in their sentences. And their dialect, interestingly, although they came from Lebanon, they must have had some past roots from Iraq as well, because there's a mix of Iraqi and Levantine dialect with significant Cypriot Greek borrowings. And Cypriot Greek is very different from mainland Greek. We need to keep that in mind as well. Some of the words which you may be interested in: pukra, bukra, tomorrow. So this is standard Arabic. This is Maronite Arabic in the English translation. Pint, bint, girl. Pinat, binat, girls. Arneb, arnab, rabbit. Kilab, kilab, dogs. So very, very similar. People can still make out somewhat what these Maronites would be saying. So the Greeks I've actually put down specifically for the Greeks because we're talking about history here. So we can't push our identities and ideologies on the people of the past. So people that refer to themselves as Greek today wouldn't have done so in the past. So pre-1830s, before the rise of Greek nationalism, megalithea, and Hellenic ideals, they always referred to themselves as Romegos. And in Turkish we say Rum. And Rum means, in Arabic as well, you have a surah, a chapter in the Quran, Surah Rum. What does Rum mean? Roman. When they're talking about the Romans, they're not talking about Caesar and the Western Romans. They're talking specifically about the Eastern Romans. And part of those Rum are from Cyprus. And they have as I said earlier, they are actually, more accurately, should be described as Roman Orthodox people who were Hellenized. Why that was, Greek at the time, particularly in the Byzantine era, much like it was in the Ottoman times, your religion defined your identity. So if a Greek became Muslim, he became Turkos, he's a Turk. And if a Turk became Christian, he's become Rum. That was the defining or the important element of their identity, right? They have a long history of Arab admixture, as goes back from ancient history, but also from the Arab times, 300 years of the condominium. In the Latin era, when the Latins or the Catholics ruled Cyprus, there was Muslim slaves and Arab slaves, and there were also Christian Arabs which were coming and adding to the Maronite admixture. There were Arab slaves who were becoming baptized and mixing with these people. So they have a long history of Arab admixture. There's a legend, Digenis. This Digenis is very similar to the Turkish or the Arabic folk legend, Battal Gazi. Battal Gazi. This Digenis means like half blood or two blood, because he was half Arab and half Rum from the mainland. And there's so many myths and legends about Digenis. What's relevant for us is the Cypriot part, where Digenis comes to Cyprus and he's scaring the Arabs away because his father, who was Arab Muslim, converted to Christianity upon marrying his mother. So he was raised as Rum. And he was fighting against these Arabs, these Saracens, and he was throwing rocks because he was a giant apparently. And he got rocks from the Troodos Mountains, which is the largest mountain range in Cyprus, and he was flinging it towards Paphos, which was the center of the Arabs. And there are rocks there now, known as the Roman and also Saracen rocks, still to this day called those names, and that was the story behind it. There's a long Islamic influence in the Greek language. Haji. A Haji for a Greek or Rum is one who's gone to their holy land. So one who's been baptized in the holy land, just as Jesus Christ, Isa Mesih, he becomes Haji. And unlike in Islam, where the individual is only Haji, their progeny also becomes Haji as well in Greek. Also, the word mashallah or inshallah is very common. Some of these are more prevalent with older generations. Why? Because all the conflicts, 1974, I won't go into that. So, of course, because of politics and a hatred for the other on both sides, they try to remove these words. There was one neighbor I had, Andrullah, and she used to always say, mashallah, mashallah, inshallah. I said, it's Islamic statement. No! And she stopped saying it from that day because she was a churchgoer, It's a good woman, but what can we say? But specifically to the Greek Cypriot dialect, there are words such as our friend said, batika. What does that mean? Ya Arab. Watermelon. Yeah? Batik. But in Kalamara dialect, in the Greek mainland dialect, it's called karpuzi. Karpuzi. In Turkish, it's called karpuz. Gubes, I mentioned already. Kupa, kibbe. Ambalados, you know what that means? So ambalados is like saying idiot or stupid to somebody. In Greek, mainland dialect, they say blakas. And ambalados derives from the Arabic balada. It can mean dull, or it can mean the word. What you need to understand is Arabic. The form changes according to the sentence, so that's why it derives from that. Also, usu, be quiet, shush, shut up. In Greek Cypriot dialect. In Greek mainland, they say sopa. But in the mainland Arabic dialects, Jaziratul Arab, Peninsular Arabic, they say us. Us, ussu. Sopa in Greek mainland, no resemblance at all. Okay. You know Gulumaga? You know that good. You know your dialect good, yeah? Gulumaga, yeah. Yeah, very good. Very good. Because a lot of the younger people are kind of losing. Yeah, it's going strong. Here. Yeah. Don't ruin it for them. I'll put it here, not in Latin, so they won't understand it. Re, ra, rama. Okay, Gulumaga, kullu, everything, yeah? Everything. Yeah? But in standard Greek, olamazi. Olamazi is the equivalent of that. Kullumaka, I don't know if it's in Arabic as well. Maybe it derives from kullumakan. Yeah? Kullumaka, everything. Hep beraber. Kullumaka gidelim, hep beraber. Yeah? All together. Also, yallasu. Yallasu in standard Greek, bame. Yalla bina in Arabic. Yeah? For those who don't understand. So, let's go. Yeah? I don't know why I'm speaking with a foreign accent when I'm saying these things. Okay, so Kullumaga, Yasu, yes, we've done that, good. Okay, next slide. So the Turks of Cyprus. This is a very interesting one because we need... You're part Turkish. Turkey, eh? Yeah. Çorak. You see? So the ethnic composition. So when I'm talking about the borrowings from Arabic or the racial admixture, one shouldn't misunderstand this as me putting an argument forward to say that the Turks are Arabs. So we're talking about a group which is predominantly from Turks, from the tribe of Oghuz, Al-Oghuziyya, and from the Oghuz there is a number of tribes. So you have Turkmenistan Turks, Azerbaijan, and you have those who are Ottoman Turks, which they don't use anymore because of political reasons. But Ottoman Turk traditionally has meant those from the Balkans, Anatolia, Levantine. These are all Oghuz Turks, and similarly the Cypriot ones. The Cypriot Turks, according to the records, and thankfully the Ottomans were meticulous in their record keeping. We know exactly who the ancestors were from who they derived from. We know all of this, and they were predominantly from Anatolia, the Balkans. So the Balkans were 50% Muslim at the time of the Ottomans, by the way. Turks, Albanians, and Bosniaks mainly. And interestingly, Yörük or Turkmen. You guys heard of Turkmen? Any of the Arabs? Turkoman? Yeah. So Turkmen or Yörük means a nomadic or semi-nomadic Turk. A Turk who lives in a city dweller, he was Turk. But somebody who was still living those traditional lifestyle, they were called Yörük or Turkmen. So from, you can say about Mersin, Adana, all the way to the Balkans, westwards, they were called Yörük. If they were east of that side, they're called Turkmen. And particularly about 100 years after the conquest of Cyprus by the Ottomans, there was uprisings, eşkıyalık, banditry, prevalent among these Yörük. They were going around and stealing from people and causing havoc and attacking people. And so a large portion of them were sent to Cyprus. And these people, their dialect influenced the current Turkish Cypriot dialect to this day. Okay. Additional communities which joined the Turkish Cypriots and helped enrich us to what we are now were Muslim Arabs, predominantly from Levant, Egypt, but also Sudan. So you will see many Turkish Cypriots have black admixture, and even from Greeks actually, Mavro. Yeah, you have some, but more prevalent in Turkish Cypriot communities. Yeah, of course, yeah. Yeah. So in my family, I have an uncle who's as dark as me, and I have another uncle who's blue-eyed and is really white. But we have black ancestry as well. And I'll show you as a slide progress regarding that. We also have Circassians. So from the Caucasus, many people came to Cyprus. And when there was slavery, and there was slavery in that time, and all empires and states had slavery at the time. So we shouldn't think of this statement as specific to Ottomans or British or anything. What made the Ottomans stand out, however, was that it wasn't racial as the transatlantic slavery was. So transatlantic was exclusively for blacks. Ottomans, doesn't matter. White, black, we'll take them. Yeah. So at one point in time, half of the slaves were black from Sudan and Nuba, and the other half were Circassian, whites. Doesn't matter. Yeah. Gulumaga. We have prevalent gypsies as well. Yeah, gypsy communities, Roma, or however you want to call it, the political correct statement is now. In our dialect, we call them Jingane. Yeah, or maybe more politely, gurbet, or gurbeti in Greek. Gurbeti, yeah? And they have their own language as well, which is dying. And after the division, the Taksim of Cyprus, many of them moved to Omrofo, Güzelyurt, Morfu town. We have Rums as well. So many would be married with Turks and they'll become Muslim in the process. Some would marry and not become Muslim. There was no compulsion regarding them converting, but their children would be Muslim because the onus was on the Muslim man, the Turkish man, to raise his children as Muslims. So automatically the record would keep it in that way. So that bloodline additionally helped to have some sort of Rum or Cypriot addition. And when the Ottomans conquered Cyprus, there was also Latins as well who joined in the admixture. So even from the Latin, we have like words like penna instead of kalem for pen. The religion, traditionally speaking, the Turks of Cyprus have mostly been Muslim, Sunni, Hanefi, Maturidi. And Sufism was prevalent in Cyprus. So either they were members of Sufi tarikats, so this is what we call mystical Islam, either they were members or they had sympathies towards this. And the most prevalent tariqas in Cyprus were the Mawlawi. So you think that the dervishes that move, followers of Jalaluddin Rumi. Naqshbandi, which was seen as the orthodox. They were the hardliners of the time. Qadiri, Rufai, and also there was presence of Badawi, which is an Egyptian tariqa from Tamta. Traditionally, the Mawlawis were the most strongest tariqa in Cyprus. Towards the end, Naqshbandi took over and became the strongest tariqa in Cyprus. Names. Our most common names are names like Ahmed, Mehmet. Mehmet is short for Muhammad. Okay, and Mustafa. And with the females, we have like Emine, Aisha. These are very common names. However, we also have, I think one person said to me, the nene names, yeah, granny names, right? Because traditionally, a lot of our women or girls would be called with names ending with ta marbuta, which is the feminine letter, which is when it's added. So like Besim, Besime. Okay. Resmi, Resmiye. Resmiye is very popular. You hear someone in Cyprus called Resmiye, it means they're Turkish Cypriot. Resmiye means official or someone who's serious, who's like like not someone who messes about or goes against the flow of things. Bahriye, Bahar, ocean. Ilmiye, very nice name, Ilim. Yeah, one who possesses knowledge. Is that your nene's name? Your auntie, there you go. Yeah, your youngest name, your nene's name. And Jemaliye, one who's beautiful. Important Turks of Cyprus, I'll quickly just run through this. We had Siyahi Mustafa Dede. Siyahi, black, because he was half black and half white. Now, we may be thinking, why Siyahi? This person was the most important and he became Dede. This in Sufi language means he is the top of that order. He was a top sheikh of the Mawlawis. And he was named, and there would be people coming and visiting him from far away because he was known as Sheikhul Mashayikh, the sheikh of the sheikhs. That's how high level his knowledge and his spirituality and piety was. Such that in Egypt, in Cairo, where they have a Mawlawi tekke or Zawiya as well, there was problems going on, fitna going on there. There was problems going on in that tekke, such that they had to call our very own Siyahi Mustafa there to go there and sort things out. And once he sorted things out, he said, I want to go back to my beloved Cyprus. And he returned there. We have Mehmed Emin Pasha, who was Sadrazam, Grand Vizier of the Ottoman Empire. He's Cypriot. Kamil Pasha, Kıbrıslı Kamil Pasha, Cypriot. Sheikh Nazım el-Kıbrısi. Yeah, whatever your thoughts about him are, he has managed to have an international following. And if you go to Lefke, which our friend here has been to, you will see people from all around the world wearing shalvar and turbans and doing hadra, the worship. You know, when you see the dancing, the first thing you think of when you think Sufism, oh, Allah, oh, right? That hadra, actually, Sheikh Nazım Kıbrısi went to Syria, Sham, and he learnt the hadra dance from the Syrians. This is a Syrian practice from the Sufis of Asham. and he brought it over to Cyprus. Okay. Alparslan Türkeş. Anyone heard of this guy? Alparslan Türkeş. Yeah, you've heard it. Charlie's heard. Of course, you've heard of him. Alparslan Türkeş. When we think of modern day nationalism in Turkey, the Grey Wolves, Bozkurt, yeah, Üç Hilal, and all of that kind of thing. All that nationalist, ultra-nationalism stems from a Turkish Cypriot, and his home is in Lefkoşa in Nicosia. Yeah, and Rauf Denktaş, who was a leader of the Turkish community for a very long time. Guys, me mentioning this is not telling you whether I support or don't support them. It's a neutral statement. In history, these are prominent Turkish Cypriots. Early newspapers also say to us a lot about how Arabic has influenced us. One of the early newspapers was actually an Arabic publication, Dikuş Şark, the Rooster of the Orient. But we also had Turkish publications with Arabic names, so like Seyf, Kılıç, sword. And we had Ankebut, means spider. Yeah. So rather than, the Turks did use the Turkish words, örümcek, kılıç, they were used. But they preferred to use the Arabic names, maybe because of religious significance. So Ankebut is a chapter in the Quran. So they maybe prefer to use that. Seyf, there is a hadith, a saying, which talks about how the paradise is under the shade of the sword. And that hadith actually was written underneath the logo of the Seyf newspaper. So it tells us about the culture of the Turkish Cypriots at that time. Right, where are we on this? Turks of Cyprus. Right. Oh, the names of the, Besim, Salahi. Salahi, it's rare against Arabs, but you won't find it. Is it common? No, but somewhat, yeah? Rare, but it's also found in our people, but you won't find it in Turkey. Behiç also is known in amongst the Turks. Arabic influence. So the sentence structure, for those who are familiar with Standard Turkish and the Cypriot dialect of Turkish. Turkish in Cyprus doesn't follow the grammatical order of Altaic languages. Okay, so Azerbaijani Turkish, whatever, Turkmen, Anatolian, they follow a certain sentence structure, which the Turks in Cyprus follow the opposite order. So for example, Uridu an adhab, yeah, I want to go. In Cypriot Turkish dialect, isterim gideyim. I want to go. In modern standard Turkish, gitmek istiyorum. Go, I want. In Azerbaijani Turkish, gitmek isteyelim. Go, I want. Yeah, so the grammatical order is even switched, which is rather unique actually, considering it's huddled in with the Turkish language. Another one is ta'al huna. Come here. Gel buraya. Yeah, the A is always lengthened. Ta'al, gel, come. Buraya, huna. In standard Turkish, buraya gel. Here, come. Phrases, which unfortunately is dying out, but particularly the older generation will be aware of. Yalla ruh in Ammiya. Yeah, it's common in Turkish dialect. So it can be yalla ruh, it can be yalla beruh. These are common ways of saying get lost in Turkish Cypriot dialect. Also ala kayfa, it's used in Arabic. But ala kayfa, let's go for entertainment. Let's go for fun. Ala kayfa. Kullumaga, again, same as the Greek Cypriot. Yeah, kullumaga, let's hep beraber. Yeah, all together. Mafish kurban. Mafish, very common Egyptian. Masri, mafish. It's like one of the standard phrases, yeah, of Egyptians. So mafish, also mafish kurbanish. They're very common, or was rather, when the Cypriot dialect was more raw. Now it's been watered down somewhat because of the education system, media is all following standard Turkish. And ehlem ve sehlem, which isn't common anymore. And that comes from, of course, ahlan wa sahlan. Yeah, welcome. Insults, I don't know how much detail I should go into, but haspa chikart. Yeah, thank you, everyone has heard of that. Haspa, does anyone know what haspa actually means? No? What's it used for? When you say haspa chikart, shut your mouth, yeah? But actually, haspa, does anyone other Arabs know what haspa means? Huh? You don't know? Haspa is, let me see, measles. Measles. Haspa chikart, yeah, it's basically saying die. Yeah, in the context of shut up, die. Haspa chikart. Yeah, this is the most common like Cypriot. Haspa? Haspa shishi. Yeah, same thing, yeah. I just ruined it, didn't I? But there's also harra or ibnul harra. Do you guys use this? Apologies if it's used. Sorry. This. Yani, we're in the middle of presentation, brother. Thank you. So, Ibn al-Harra actually means literally son of freedom. Yeah? But in what it's used is son of a free person, as in a free woman. Yeah, so son of a is the context. Apologies. But again, from the Arabic, there, Ibn al-Harra. From the vocabulary, barra. One of the most common Egyptian dialect words. This isn't standard Arabic, this is Egyptian dialect. And all the Arabs know this word because it's used so much by the Egyptians. And the Turkish Cypriots, to this day, very common. Barra. Or yalla barra. Zeflemek. Whoever asked from the Turkish Cypriots, what does zeflemek mean? Mock. Yeah? Zeflemek is to mock. In standard Turkish, alay etmek. Yeah? It comes from the word zefk, meaning enjoyment. Yeah? You're making a plaything or a mockery of that person. You're getting enjoyment by mocking that person. So zeflemek is mocking. Bakara is a pulley. And Arabiya, in a general sense, Arabs, or anything associated with Arabs. For the Turkish Cypriots, there is a folk dance and folk music called Arabiya. And there are variants of this, Arabiya 1, Arabiya 2. So a special dance and music which follows the tones or the rulings of the Arab music, Arabiya. Still common to this day. Hus, if you remember Usu from the Greeks, and Us from Jaziratul Arab dialect, in the Turkish Cypriots, they say Hus, Husol. And this is very popular with Egyptians and Levantines as well, Hus. Yeah? Yeah, okay. And Ewa, but in the context of the Turks of Cyprus, they say it more in cheers when they have a drink. Ewa. Yeah, like Sherefe is used more commonly now, but in the past more Ewa. Pronunciation. Standard Cypriot Turkish, Ramadan. You still have people with this name in the UK, Ramadan. Standard Turkish, Ramazan. There's a standard. Dad is very difficult. They say Arabic is a language of Dad because it's so hard to pronounce. And interestingly, there is no W in standard Turkish, but we've made an exception in Cyprus. So for quwwa, kuvvet, strength, we say quwwat, quwwatlıdır. Strong. Intonation as well. And intonation can make it a statement, it is, or it can make it a question. So, أنت ذاهب إلى المدرسة. Let's go to the school. Gideceksin mektebe. Yeah, okul is a new word. Okul is a made-up word, deriving from French. Mekteb is originally in Turkish Cypriot dialect, but in Arabic it means office. But in Turkish Cypriot dialect it means school, and medrese was like a university. So they had medreses in Cyprus, which was like a university level. You had like mekteb ibtidai mektebi, Sibyan mektebi, like anaokul, primary school and such were called mekteb. Standard Turkish, okula gidecek misin? And this misin is very important. It makes it a question, not a statement. But I could say in Turkish Cypriot dialect, gideceksin mektebe, gideceksin mektebe, you are going to go. Okay, gideceksin mektebe, will you go? So the intonation is ever so important in the Turkish Cypriot dialect. Very, very musical, very tonal. Ottoman Turkish. So in the strictest sense of the word, in Ottoman times, they didn't speak a separate language. They spoke Lisani Turki, Lehçe Osmani. The language, the Turkish language of the dialect of Ottoman dialect. Yes, divan poetry, which the elites would write, they would show off. Look how educated I am. I know Persian and I know Arabic. And so they would throw that into the literature to show off how much they knew. But the layman, they spoke very much what we're speaking now, but a lot more Arabic and Farsi, as opposed to now where they've taken a lot of these Arabic and Farsi words out and taken a lot of French words and made up some words and taken some from Central Asia and such to kind of Turkify their language. But here is the Turkish alphabet, which was used for 1,000 years, from the Karamanids, Ghaznavids, and so on, all the way up to the early 20th century. The Turkish Cypriots went on for a bit longer than the mainland Turks. Here is the the Turkish alphabet, and you can see there are different letters. So P, it's from Farsi. P, Che. These letters, guys, for those who are not familiar with Arabic, are not found in the Arabic language. There is no Che, there is no Pe, there is no Je. There is no gaf. There's no G in Arabic language. And there's no, this one is called kafi Turki or nef. It's a noise. And when the language reform happened in Turkey, the Turks in Anatolia, they lost this noise. The Cypriots still use it. Napang, sing. Yeah, this is that letter. Kafi Turki. And this is not found in Farsi or Arabic. It's unique. It's exclusive to Turkish. And we lost it in the language reforms. Here is Kıbrıs Gazetesi, the Kıbrıs newspaper. And this is written in Turkish. Intermigration. So we have migration from Cyprus to the Arab lands and from the Arab lands to Cyprus. So again, prevalent J2 haplogroup, people belonging to these haplogroups mixing and exchanging their culture and language. I mentioned earlier about their condominium, 300 years, when Muawiyah radiallahu anh, he sent 12,000 Muslims and built garrisons in Famagusta and Paphos, and I went and visited the one in Paphos. And he sent a group from Baalbek in Lebanon. There were Muslim slaves from the Latin era, and some were baptized and became Christian. But there was significant Arab admixture in Ottoman era as well. And as I said, it's back and forth. So there are Turkish Cypriots that moved to Arab lands. So specifically, if we go to Lebanon, there's El-Baf. Where did they come from, guys? Paphos, yeah. El-Baf. So we have a big major family in Lebanon called El-Baf. And their family was involved in the conquest of Cyprus during the Ottoman times. And they went to Lebanon, and they are a big family there. You also have Gubrusli. This is a Christian family who are from Greek Cypriots. And one of the most famous, I would say, of the Gubrusli clan is Abdullah Gubrusli. If anyone follows the politics of Sham and Syria, there is a group, and they are pushing for greater Syria, greater Levant. So they envision that Syria will become Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, Palestine, parts of Turkey, Sinai Peninsula, and also Cyprus. So this Abdullah Gubrusli, who was a prominent member of this party, he was advocating for Cyprus to be part of Sham. And there's a Gubrusli and that was Gubrusi. Gubrusli are the Turkish family, the Muslim family. And Gubrusli comes from the Turkish word Kıbrıslı, Cypriot. And the Gubrusli family is also very prominent. And they have people in their family, found in Sidon and Beirut predominantly. You have Major General Muhammad Gubrusli, who was a former commander of the security forces. You have El-Hajj Hilal Gubrusli, who was the president of the Al-Maqasid Islamic Society in Sidon. And you also have a martyr who was resisting the Israeli forces, Nazi Gubrusli, or Gubrusli in their pronunciation. You have Ahmed bin Shahin Abu Hafs al-Gubrusli, who died in 1683. He was from a Cypriot family who had moved to Syria. If you are into Divan poetry, he is one of the big major names in Arabic poetry. And we know that he was from the Turks because Shahin is not Arabic. It's originally from a Farsi root. It's a bird of prey. We have Greek communities in Egypt, predominantly Alexandria, and some in Cairo as well. We have Tunisian sheikhs who came to Cyprus. Sheikh Ahmed bin Hamouda. And Sheikh Hamouda was the sheikh of Hala Sultan Mosque, prominent mosque. And he died in 1683. Yeah. We have Egyptian soldiers which were settled in the Karpas Peninsula, mostly Galeburnu. In 1831. How do we know it's 1831? Because of the census. I told you Ottomans were meticulous in their records, and I came across this whilst reading them. A whole group with their names listed as well, of which Egyptian soldiers settled in Karpas Peninsula. Early 20th century, we have 4,000 or so Turkish marriages, Turkish brides from Cyprus, marrying Arab men and going and living in mainly Palestine. Why this was, when the British came, the Turks, the Muslims, were impoverished. They were poor. And so what they had to do, they're called başlık parası, where you give a certain amount of money when you get married to a woman. That's how things were in the past. That is, rich Arab men would come from mainly Palestine. They'd marry these Turkish women, and then they'll go back to Palestine. And after the war and such, the Nakba, they moved mainly to Jordan. There are many families in Gaza and also in Jordan which have Turkish Cypriot roots. When I was in the army, there was two brothers, Güçük, El Güçük, And Turkey had come to Gaza at that time. Again, there was something going on, as there is every couple of years. And because they had Turkish Cypriot roots, they were entitled to Turkish Cypriot citizenship. And so Turkey was able to take that family out and save them. And even now, when all of this is happening in Gaza, there are many who stem from these Turkish Cypriot families where Turkey is looking to take them, and there are talks about settling them in Cyprus as well. Around 4,000 of those went to Palestine. Families with Arab roots in Cyprus. We have the Abu Juma from Famagusta. Fellah Oğlu, very famous family, big family from Paphos. And the Fellah Oğlus from Egyptians. Fellah means peasant, farmer. And Gara Salihler, my ancestry from Gara Salihler, the black Salihs. Why? Because this gentleman over here, Haji Ali, is my great-grandfather. And his father was Gara Salih, black Salih. And he was a black Egyptian. Great-grandfather. Mine. Yeah. Put the fez on. Yeah. Haji Ali. He went Hajj 3 times in his life. And he also went to Anatolia when all the War of Independence and things were happening. And he got a second wife from there. Why I'm saying this, he's getting happy. Why I'm saying this, it tells you an indication about the culture of the time. Yeah, that polygamy was not unheard of in that time. This gentleman here, Ahmet Gürses, is Bafidi. Originally, he was one of the imams of the Hagia Sophia Mosque in Nicosia, which is currently known as Selimiye. He married, or rather his 2 of his daughters were married to Arabs. And he would regularly go to Jordan. And he loved the Arab culture there. His daughters were happily married. And here he's representing that Arab side of his family. And he would always try to get them to come to Cyprus. One of his daughters did come eventually with the children, but they got bored. And after a couple of years, they went back. Sharif Hussein, anyone know about Sharif Hussein? Yeah, end of the Ottoman Empire, there were the Arab revolts. Yeah, so he is from the bloodline of the Prophet. And what he did, the British encouraged him, and he said, okay, why are the Turks the caliphs for? You are from the bloodline of the Prophet. You are Arab. You should be the caliph. So rise up. And he did. It didn't work out so well for him. So for a while, he was actually living in Cyprus because it was British era at that time. And interestingly, Sharif Hussein used to regularly meet with Rauf Denktaş, the head of the Turkish community later on. Rauf Denktaş when he was a boy, and his father. And he would always lament. He was crying. Sharif Hussein, what did I do? I was treacherous towards the Ottomans. I shouldn't have done this. I regret it. And Sheikh Nazim Kubrisi already mentioned he went to Sham and where he learnt the Hadra. So it's a 2-way migration. And if we go into detail, I won't go through all of this. You have people from Jaziratul Arab, the Arab Peninsula. You have people from Iraq, Palestine, Syria, Somalia, although this is part of the Arab Union, so I'll put them in as well. Yemen, Algeria, Egypt, Sudan, I forgot the dal there, and Tunisia as well, not so much from there. Predominantly from Syria, and this would include Lebanon as well. And secondly, Egypt from that early 20th century. So we're talking about 1901 up to 1931. Guys, you've been really attentive. Thank you very much. Shukran jazilan. Thank you.